Let's talk a little bit about the interplay then between the caucus and the primary. Just because there is a presidential nominating caucus on February 9th, that doesn't mean that Nebraska Democrats shouldn't get out and vote on the primary date in May.
That's right, and I think that will be candidate driven as well, in the sense that unfortunately we usually have a low turnout, both Republicans and Democrats, unless there's some primary race. And so we'll just have to wait and see. But again, like I said earlier, the primary is still on for all races, and we are not in any way taking away from that. And there's a lot of confusion on 2 points, and one is about the caucus. The caucus is binding, meaning the delegates to the convention are picked starting with February 9th. And second, the primary, of course, exists for everything except presidential. And the reason that is I can't think of a time, I think 1984, when Gary Hart and Walter Mondale was the last time that our presidential primary counted for anything. And before that, it was Bobby Kennedy in '68 with Gene McCarthy. So as a practical matter, we're not changing anything other than now there's an opportunity to be involved in the participation, because it may not be over on February 9th.
Now, you've also talked about the financing, that the caucuses are not publicly financed. What effect, if at all, does that have on the caucuses?
Well, you know, it's a grassroots effort. I mean, I think everyone knows that politics is expensive, and I think especially here in Nebraska, the people who are active in the party want to put an emphasis on grassroots politics. And so this is a low-budget grassroots. You don't need to spend a lot of money other than letting people know about it, because if it's somebody's house, it doesn't cost really anything. You can write the ballots down, or you know how you can stand in a corner. It doesn't cost anything. You Clinton folks, you Edwards folks, separate, go, and then we count them up and you call it in. So the money that's necessary is for renting halls when we don't have a house, and really for publicity. And obviously anyone who'd like to make a donation, 434-2180 or 436-3030.
And other than volunteering your house or showing up on February 9th, what other ways can people volunteer to prepare for the caucuses?
I think the most important thing, and what would be the most fun, is if you have a candidate, you should go take over your precinct. I fully expect, regardless, and this is just my take on it, regardless of, let's say that John Edwards has already won the nomination by February 6th, or Barack Obama, or Hillary Clinton. I still think in Lancaster County, Dennis Kucinich will get a delegate or two. Dennis Kucinich's folks are committed, and they are organized, and I am sure that they will get together and organize. I know that, and so it's a nice little thing. The mere fact that there may be on February 6th, you know, quite a few of the delegates will have been chosen, doesn't stop you from saying, you know, I want to go to the convention, and I want to support this candidate. And Dennis Kucinich never released his delegates in '04. And while I'm not a Kucinich supporter, I respect him greatly, because, you know, he wasn't a chump like Ralph Nader. I mean, Ralph Nader got George Bush elected, and Dennis Kucinich stays within the party. He moves the ball forward on his issues, and he is not a spoiler. And I think he understands he's not going to be the next president, but I also think he believes passionately in certain issues, in ending the war, in universal health care, and he's going to move that forward. And so I suspect that his supporters will be out there.
Let's just take a more national view now. When we look at the overall 2008 presidential election, what do you see coming down the pike? I mean, how are you seeing it this early? What effect have the early polls shown? And if you don't want to talk about the polls, what effect do you think, if any, the polls have?
Oh, I think the polls are good for nothing. 4 years ago at this time, Howard Dean was way ahead. Dick Gephardt was in second place. I think John Lieberman might have been in third, or maybe Kerry had caught him by third by now. I think John Kerry's campaign was in trouble. He had to lend himself money. I think what happens is that people are just starting to tune into it. And the polls are name recognition, so you'd expect those who get the most free media, certainly Hillary Clinton, would get it, and she's a wonderful candidate. Barack Obama is a wonderful candidate. We're really, on the Democratic side, there isn't anybody who would not make a good president. But on the national side, I would expect, I back John Edwards. I'm a super delegate. I get to go to the convention, and I've committed to John Edwards, and I expect that he'll win in Iowa. I expect that he will come into Nebraska, and I expect he'll win Nebraska as well, and he'll be the next president of the United States. And if not, someone else, so another Democrat will, and whoever the folks who show up in Iowa and participate will have it. And February 5th and hopefully February 9th. I hope it's still, I hope it's down to 2 and John Edwards and someone else on the 9th.
And Vince, as most of us know, you're a local trial lawyer, and so if you would just give a 30-minute,
they might fall asleep.
A 30-second summary, a closing argument, why somebody watching this show should actually show up at a caucus, a precinct caucus, on February 9th.
Because it's very important who the President of the United States is, and it's very important, if you have a democracy, to partake in a democracy. Otherwise, you're just letting somebody else do it for you. And don't complain if you don't vote.
And one more time, the numbers of how people
Sure.
can contact the Democratic Party to be able to get involved.
The state party, Nebraska, Democrats.org, or Google Nebraska Democratic Party. It is 402-434-2180. Matt Keneally is a great executive director. He's done a very good job, and he continues to do a very good job. Vic Kovold at 402-436-3030. He is our own volunteer. He is the caucus czar here for Lancaster County, and is doing just a terrific job. And you can also go to nebraskacaucus.com, which is a website put up really by Ted Kessler here of Lincoln, another great volunteer. And